I would argue that I think everyone has a belief in something, even if they don't believe in a God. That everyone has a belief system that they orient their lives upon, even if it's complete nihilism. It's a belief system, I think, and that's one of the reasons why it's funny when people get upset at me and other people online for talking about our personal belief systems. It's like, I wish you wouldn't talk about Jesus. I wish you wouldn't talk about your belief system. It's like, okay, we all have a belief system. We might as well talk about it so that you know where someone's coming from. You don't have to guess it. And trying to pretend like you can devoid your statements and your thesis and your conclusions from your belief system, like I just think that's more or less silly. But anyway, that's more of a side comment. Let's see, what was the other? Oh, the other question was, do I think Bitcoin's divine intervention? Right, that was a question. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think so. And that's simply because to me, it just seems to be a piece of technology. I mean, was Gutenberg's printing press divine intervention? I mean, he was doing it to mass produce Bibles. And how many billions of people have had Bibles in their hands because of his invention? I mean, it's a big deal. And was that divine intervention? I don't know. Maybe. I think everything is, I think God is sovereign. I think God oversees all. So I definitely think God ordained the printing presses and Bitcoin's inventions, but I don't know. I don't agree with Max Kaiser. I don't think Bitcoin and Satoshi are God, or I'm not in that train. Bitcoin is technology and it's wonderful, but I don't think it's a God. But yeah. Anyway, I have a couple of closing thoughts, I guess.
Hit
just
it.
to like wrap so much. Yeah, I guess the first thing to say, we were talking about absolutes earlier, and I think something important to say, building off of everything we've been saying about human nature and exponentials and everything like that. I think one thing that's really important, I've said it on other shows, I don't know if I've said it on this one, but I think it's crucial to emphasize that if this is correct, it has to get worse. Like the current system has to get worse. Because again, if we understand the current global monetary and therefore economic system from this lens, well, Jerome Powell, Janet Yellen, all these people are essentially gods of these systems, of this system. And because they are gods of this system that come out onto their altars, their podiums, and they declare, what's going to change now. We're going to change the values. We're going to change the structure of everyone's value. Or, it's the same thing in the same way that pagan gods of ancient religions, or the same way that of polytheistic religions, or the same way that God of monotheistic religions comes out and decrees rules. It's the same thing that these central bankers do. And because they're human, because these positions exist, because these altars of sacrifice exist, it has to get worse. Money is information. And if the money is surviving as a function of distortion of truth and distortion of reality, it's like it can't come back to reality without collapsing. And it can only continue to survive if it's further devoid from reality. So it's like, people, and this is why I think there's such a stark divide between the Bitcoiners that are like trying to find truth and like have an optimistic view because their time preference is lower, versus everyone else that's more pessimistic. The news cycle is so pessimistic and so absurd. And ultimately, it's just, why is that? It's because if you're in this value system where you have a monetary component, it's surviving with all these human gods, and all humans are corrupted in this moral sense. I mean, it has to get worse. If money is information, it survives in misinformation, it has to get worse. The amount of centralization has to get worse. The wealth inequality being distorted from natural wealth distribution, that has to get worse. The political sphere has to get worse. Speaking of absolutes, if Bitcoin survives, everything outside of it has to get worse for the users within it. And within Bitcoin, everything is almost certain, and I would argue absolutely has to get better, because everyone that joins in can only have wealth and build within that system if they provide value to other people within that system. So it's like it inherently has to get better. So I think that's something really important to emphasize for folks. And I think, and I get asked a lot, why do I put in the work and do all these shows and whatever? And we were talking about psychology earlier. I think it ultimately comes to that this discussion we're having, which is way out there. I think it was Opti that said it earlier, but basically that human psychology will eventually catch up, and it's going to be, not a decade or whatever. And I think I agree. It probably won't be super fast, but I think one point to add there, I think that all three of us and probably everyone within the Bitcoin space fails to realize is that at a certain point, people are going to be beginning to adopt Bitcoin and not even understand why they're adopting it. Like everyone adopting Bitcoin right now is putting in the work and thinking it through and putting in time, but it's like most people don't think. And most people are going to adopt this without understanding what's happening. And so if we think in our minds like, wow, like me, Miko, it took you 7 years, I guess. For me, it took like 4 years or whatever. I don't know how long it took for you, Opti, but it's like for us, it takes years, so it's like if adoption is to double from now into the next iteration of time, say next 4 years, that's a lot of intellectual thought that takes time for people to adopt. And this is why I so continuously am emphasizing people to get off zero, even if they don't like Bitcoin, is just because I am very confident that at a certain point, there's going to be a tipping point where the only remaining people left are those people that just follow the herd. And that's not putting them down. That's not saying that they're all stupid or whatever. That's just saying that the speed is only going to increase, and the realization once you have that is that basically it becomes obvious that we're early, because the only people paying attention right now have to be early just by game theory. It's like if you have it oscillating down here and then you just have the hyper J curve or whatever, it's like, well, of course, literally everyone in the Bitcoin space right now buying Bitcoin has to be absurdly early, like just like inarticulably early, because that's the only way it could be, because there's before and after. There's before mass adoption, where the people that are following herd mentality aren't here, and when they're here, including the nation states, including the sovereign wealth funds. And so anyway, I think that's really important. And I guess one little fun accounting thing or one fun numerical trick in your mind is to think about the number of Satoshis in each block and then divide it by number of humans. It's it's quite.
We're so early.
Yes, and it's important to emphasize that, because people ask, why do you emphasize it's early? You have to emphasize that, because if you don't, people will assume they're too early, because we think in linear terms, not exponential terms, and then they'll walk away. And it's like, people have to understand that the only people here right now are stupidly early. And at a certain point, it's like adoption will outpace the rate of psychological change, and then it'll just be done.
Yep. Oh, man.
I hope that you're enjoying this video, and I hope that after this video that you begin taking self-custody of your Bitcoin, as that is extremely important. And that also includes keeping very good care of your seed phrase and not just writing it on a piece of paper. So I encourage you to check out this video's sponsor, Stampseed. Say goodbye to storing your seed phrase on paper and electronic devices, right? With Stampseed's DIY toolkit, it's a revolutionary way for you to secure your seed words on a titanium plate, not just a piece of paper. With professional metal stamping tools, you can easily hammer your seed words into a commercial grade titanium. They've been doing this for they've been doing titanium for 13 years. Now it's fire resistant up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's off paper. It's completely secure for you to keep your seed words on. Again, fire resistant, crush proof, non-corrosive, and immune to the passage of time, unlike paper. Each letter is deeply impressed into a solid plate, not just the dots like other competing plates. So it's guaranteed to not lose pieces or have varying materials. So secure your hardware wallet with a titanium stamp seed and safeguard your Bitcoin for generations to come. So thanks. Let's get back to the video.
Well, I want to jump in here.
Tied up, Opti.
Yeah, I think to the last point Luke said, the emphasizing we're so early, is because what do most people think when they're like, oh, we're early to this? It's like, oh, I have time. I don't have to look into this right now. And what did we do? Well, we probably saw the price. I got in Bitcoin at 10K. I've been in Bitcoin. I'm going on my 6th year. I saw it jump at 10K. And what did I think? Oh my God, I am late to this. How can I be late to this crazy phenomenon happening? And basically I have no time. I better understand this now, or else, I am missing the opportunity of a lifetime. Did I know all that, in the 3 seconds when I finally made my decision? It's like, no, but subconsciously we know a lot. And to the point that you made before, Luke, I've been having the same conversation with some of my friends. It's this idea of, I really don't think that going forward, obviously we've seen this play out recently, the amount of Bitcoiners, toxic maxi Bitcoiners that have became Bitcoiners since 2020, on the one hand, is kudos to all the Bitcoin only content creators out there, but also this idea that it's never been safer than today to be holding Bitcoin. And as we move out in time, I don't think everyone's going to have to do the 10,000 plus hours to understand Bitcoin. It'll just be like a ubiquitous thing that's a part of society. It's like, do people have like do children today, young kids, do they have to study the internet to know that they're connected to their Netflix? Like, no, they just use the apps and they're already on it. And it kind of reminds me of something that Beauty On always says, and I know Beauty On gets a lot of hate on Twitter, but I absolutely love the way that he thinks about it. Not only is he a little older than us, he's seen these types of cycles, technology cycles play out, but he always talks about the idea of WhatsApp. And do the millions or billions of people that are using WhatsApp understand that all their information, all their communications is encrypted? It's like, no, they don't care. They're just using it because it's a simple user experience. All their friends are on it. They download it. They're able to communicate. They're able to do what they know they want to do. And I don't think we are necessarily there with Bitcoin yet. But as we move further in time, we're going to get that same phenomenon happen. People just download wallets. They understand that it's a normal aspect of society. They don't have to do the 10,000 plus hours to understand Bitcoin. It's just like, oh yeah, Bitcoin, of course. Like, yeah, just send me some Bitcoin. And as we move further out in time, we're going to be the crazy ones that people are like, wait, you spent how long trying to understand Bitcoin? Like, I just downloaded a wallet. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, yo, I spent years trying to understand Bitcoin. And now we're getting to this point where not only is the information so good, like the Bitcoin only content, the way of spreading the message getting that much better. We are all refining on the Bitcoin meme so that people understand what's going on. But the longer it goes out, the less people have to do research for it to make sense to them, because it is, a ubiquitous thing with society. TikTok next block, like blocks just keep coming in. It's like, oh yeah, of course Bitcoin isn't going to die. It's been around for 14 years. And the longer we go out in time, everyone's going to be doing the same thing. Like, I don't need to study this. It's just I download a wallet and it's better than everything else that I've ever experienced in my life. Exactly. It's just like, oh, scan, send, good to go. Oh, this is better than credit cards. And like, I don't think we've had that WhatsApp moment yet where I know we have, the tools, the wallets and on all the software and hardware is improving. But I don't think we've gotten to that quote unquote killer app where everyone just downloads, they're using whatever, they're using Lightning quickly, they're onboarded in literally a minute or two without any friction. And once we get to that point where privacy is as easy as downloading WhatsApp, I think we still have time where people need to understand, people need to research. And it's like all of us, we all had to put in the work. Like we all had to put in the hours. We all had to watch, I don't know, thousands of podcasts and read every article just so that we can tinker and understand like, oh, this is real. Like this is something that I can take that leap of faith on. But as we move forward in time, I don't think people are going to have to do that. And it's like Luke's saying, they're just like that one moment where it's just like everywhere. And I'm reminded of something that we always talk about on Twitter Spaces. And shouts out to my boy Brandon, who kind of brought this up to my attention. And, even the Swan guys, Corey writes The Race to Avoid the War and The Intransigent Minority. And the idea is essentially boiling this back to another historical moment. The founding fathers of the United States was only 3% of the new American population. And yet they gave all of us freedom. And it's the same idea. It's only going to take 3% of very ardent Bitcoiners to inspire the next 15% of people. And then once you get to that 15%, or whatever the number is, it's not the 3%, it's that 15%. It just, as a snap of a finger, everyone is on that Bitcoin standard. And obviously, we're not in that intransigent minority number yet. We're not at 3% of the global population or 3% of the American population. But once we get to that 3%, then it's all of us being advocates will inspire the next batch of Bitcoiners. And then once that batch of Bitcoiners is all on Bitcoin, overnight, we have hit hyper Bitcoinization. So to one of the questions you asked, Nico, do we need everyone? Not yet. And will we ever get to everyone? Who knows? Eventually, but like the whole world's not even on the internet yet. Like we still haven't got to full saturation of the global population on the internet. And yet, do we think that we're not going to have a world moving forward without the internet? Like, no, that's absolutely ridiculous. We figured out a new technology. We figured out a better way to communicate. And you think we're just going to let it die on us? Like, no, that's not how this stuff works. Once you find a new technology, you make sure that that thing lasts and you use it to benefit your life. And I think this is where we are with Bitcoin.